You are listening to Girls, Ghosts, Ghouls, a podcast where three women discuss horror movies from the silent era through the 1970s. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, and Anchor. Timely, topical, terrifying. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Girls, Ghosts, Ghouls. We're back after, a couple months sabbatical. And, of course, I'm Jenny.
I'm Rebecca.
I'm Betsy.
And we're very glad to be back with the Wolfman, because we were hoping to do the Universal Monsters through the end of the year, including October, but we missed out on that. So we're doing the Wolfman now, after we've done our Phantom of the Opera, and we thought it worked in well because Lon Chaney Jr., of course, starred as the Wolfman, and Lon Chaney, who did the original Phantom as the Phantom of the Opera, was Lon Chaney Jr.'s father. Shocking, I know.
Right.
And Claude Rains, who plays the Wolfman, Lon Chaney Jr.'s father in the movie The Wolfman, played the Phantom in the 1943 version of Phantom of the Opera. So it's a nice little bookmark in between, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
It works out really well.
It does.
Yeah.
So if you have never seen or heard of the Wolfman, I'm sorry. You're either very young or you've been hiding somewhere and you need to get out more. But as Rebecca and I were talking at one point, really this movie is what kind of, a little bit of Werewolf in London too, which preceded this, but this was really what kind of set up your American mythos of the werewolf, your standardized one with, the silver. Actually, this one doesn't do the full moon, but it does give you the silver, the wolf's bane, the pentagram, the half wolf, half man creature thing. It's mostly all from here. And it was mostly all made up by the writer-director who did this one, whose name I am not entirely sure how to pronounce. So
I don't remember, but I'm not sure if it was the same producer as the previous ones. But it does at least mention the moon only sort of vaguely when the
they just say the autumn moon in that poem.
When the autumn moon is bright.
Right. Which in later movies, in the series, and actually in Van Helsing, that terrible, terrible movie that came out in the 2000s.
It was so bad.
I wanted it, poem when they change it when the moon is full and bright. I believe they changed it too. But actually, I have to read that poem because I love it. They say it like 60 times in the freaking movie to try to drive me nuts.
Everybody in the movie knows it.
Yeah. It's even a man who's pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolf bane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolf bane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolf bane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
Even a man who is
And then I always hear the Russian actress's voice.
Maria Openskaya, she was, I loved her in this film. She was perfect and mysterious and powerful in her with her performance.
Yes.
As cliche as the presentation of the Romany may have been, although they did get a few things close, like Bela's outfit was
a lot of the costuming was pretty good. Not all of it, but a lot of it was really good. It was at least very Slavic and Eastern European, not necessarily Romany, but still very, very much in that genre and time.
True.
But as we said, a lot of the modern werewolf lore, where they pulled it from, I'm not exactly sure, but I think they did a reasonable job.
It was a lot of that up.
For creative.
Yeah, it also comes from just generalized folklore. France has had robust werewolf myths going as far back as forever. So a lot of it came from literally folk tales from the French.
Well, and it's Greek mythologies where you get the term lycanthrope from King Lycaon. So that was way back when.
Right.
They're all through Eastern Europe, Russia. Like there isn't a culture that doesn't have kind of a werewolf, some
kind of a shapeshiftery type thing.
And
the silver and all that was Kurt Siodmak, I believe is the script writer for the film. I'm probably terribly mispronouncing his name. Like I said, it's Siodmak.
Yeah, I just
Your
looked at
guess
it.
is as good as mine.
It actually, a lot of it was supposed to be, so Kurt Siodmak lived in Germany, and it was around when Nazism took rise, and he basically got chased out of Germany. And a lot about the werewolf that he put in to this movie in his writing was basically an allegory for the Nazi. You know, like here's this normal person, and all of a sudden they just get this craziness where they're going after, you know, turning into this horrible monster of a person, an animalistic, you know, terrible thing that is just killing other people. And even with the whole pentagram thing, it was, you know, even though the Star of David is not a pentagram, it's not a 5-pointed star, it's a 6-pointed star, but it still was supposed to be, you know, you see your victims have this star and you go kill them. And it was very much drawn from his experience having been run out of Nazi Germany. So yeah. I've read.
Well, I mean, it was definitely a product of its time. A good choice for an American producer to be bringing in Lon Chaney. He was sort of a shift from some of their previous exotic movie stars. I think you could see, like, you know, Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi, you know, these wonderful European stars who did such a wonderful job in the 30s. And in the 40s, you sort of had that switch to everyman.
Yeah.
Which I think
the last minute substitution too. I forgot who originally was playing it, but I think they cast Lon Chaney Jr. like, you know.
His name was Dave something. I can't remember the name. I read that too. But his name was like Dave.
Let's have Dave in the movie. No,
please.
No, Dave.
Dave, that dick.
Although when they started writing this, it was actually a vehicle for Boris Karloff, but by the time they got to the point where they were actually producing it, he was not able to do
That's what I was thinking. Boris Karloff was who they had in mind at first. Yeah. But Bela Lugosi did actively campaign. He wanted to be the Wolfman, and instead Bela got to be Bela.
Well,
that's one of my favorite things when he came on and he's like, "My name is Bela," and I was like, well, that was hard for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, from what I understand, they wanted somebody younger who could do the physicality of the role and whatnot, which is why they sort of eventually went for Lon Chaney Jr. because he had a pretty regular work in Hollywood by that point. Not anything major, but he was constantly working. He did work as a stuntman, and he fell off cliffs. He raced in prairie schooners, you know. His other big role was in Of Mice and Men, but I don't remember when that came out. He played Lenny.
Shocker there.
I was gonna say,
yeah, I would guess they wanted to go with somebody that looked more like an everyman. You know, Bela Lugosi has this very dark, dramatic, sinister appearance. Yeah. And to be honest, Lon Chaney Jr., although he's large, he was 6'2" and you know, not a skinny or tiny man, but he's not an overbearing looking personality at all. He looks like just like a cuddly type. Apparently he was a bit of an asshole, but like a frat boy type asshole. Like
he did have a drinking problem. Like
he had drinking problems, and he was like just kind of a practical joker and was a bit of a jerk to his female co-star. Partly because he was mad at her because she got his dressing room because the studio was punishing him for having destroyed some of the property while being drunk and disorderly.
I did not know that. I do know that him and Evelina Ankers did not get along, despite the fact
sneak up behind her and scare her and call her Shankers instead of Ankers.
Like he called her Shankers.
Yeah, like, you know, shanking
poor
somebody.
Woman.
Yeah, so he terrorized her throughout the whole movie. It seems he was kind of a jerk, which is sad. And like, if you look at him, you don't really get that impression. Like, he looks like he's a really nice guy, but no, he was a jerk.
Yeah, and it opens up the movie with him, you know, the prodigal son returning, I think you could say. And at first, when I see him and Claude Rains together, you know, you have shorter height Claude Rains and Sasquatch height Lon Chaney Jr. And I'm like, did they cast this correctly? Now, both of them I thought were wonderful in their respective roles.
Absolutely.
But the difference.
Yeah. Fair though, Claude Rains is he's just a short man. Like, there was a scene where actually right when Lon Chaney Jr. gets home as Lawrence Talbot. There, Claude Rains as Sir John Talbot is having a conversation with the captain of the police, or I forgot exactly what his role was, who's also a tall man. And you have this nice little scene where you have Lon Chaney Jr. on one side and this other tall actor on the other side, and poor little Claude Rains in the middle. And aside from the first initial impression, where you're like, oh, he holds his own though. You know, I mean, Claude Rains does well taking up space.
I was going to say he has gravitas, so he can get away with it a little bit. But yeah, it was kind of like, what did Mom look like? Was she a giant?
She was an Irish giant, you know.
Right? She was an Irish giant, and that's why long. But whatever. All I thought was like the first minute he hit the screen, I was like, oh, I forgot he was good looking.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like he's 40s good looking, but he's good looking. Like,
oh, definitely.
Oh, you kind of forget when you see them in their role, their roles. So you mostly see him with like behind Jenny, you know, all the makeup and stuff on it. I'm like, oh, I forgot he's like kind of cute. Okay.
Yeah. Has that kind of cute everyman sort of cuddly look, even though, like I said, it turned out he was not a very nice person. I mean, it got nicer later, but apparently he was just like a total jerk in this. To specifically his co-star.
Yeah.
He just terrorized the hell out of her. And Evelyn, was it Evelyn Akers? Is that her real name?
Evelyn Akers, yes.
Yeah.
She had a terrible time. Like, aside from being like completely harassed by Lon Chaney Jr., she got chased by a bear. Because it was a scene that got cut where Lon Chaney Jr. as Lawrence Talbot is defending her by fighting off a bear that gets loose from Romany encampment. And apparently that parts of those scenes were in the trailer, but they were never in the movie because it went awry. And the bear got loose, started chasing who ran and like climbed up a ladder. An electrician basically pulled her up away from the bear, you know, to help save her. And there was like I said, Lon Chaney Jr. would constantly like sneak up behind her and pull makeup and scare the hell out of her. There's a scene where she's supposed to pass out when it's in the foggy woods and the chemical fog, like, so she act faints onto the ground, and then she has to stay there so they can film the rest of the scene. And she inhaled so much of the chemical that she passed out for real. And they didn't notice, like they didn't know she was gone for a while. They were like, because she wasn't in the scene, so they were focusing on everything else. And later on, they're like, "Oh, where is she? Oh shit!" You know?
So she can't catch a break because Larry Talbot comes home, and you have him reuniting with his father, and then bonding over the telescope, and then the father leaves, and this is the beginning of the cringy part of the movie, of when Lon Chaney, he's testing out the telescope and he zooms in on the girl.
Yeah. But it's creepy before that when you read like some of the trivia about it. So the way that whole telescope is set up, it was never set up like in reality when you look at it to look at the sky. It always was set up to look at the village.
Look at the town.
So Sir John Talbot apparently was a peeper to begin with, and you know, Lawrence Talbot was his
following in his father's footsteps.
All he did was see what his dad was looking at, which was apparently that girl.
Like father, like son,
right?
True.
But yeah, it's truly creepy, you know. And I don't know, the worst part about it is they do it. It's obviously creepy, but the way Lon Chaney looks and acts, it's like kind of like cuddly creepy. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like you feel like you're wrong to be mad at them, but you should be because it's creepy and wrong.
True. There's the whole one scene where after it's his telescope, he goes into town to flirt with Gwen. And she is continuously subtly trying to, create that distance, to pull that distance in between them. And he's, oh, I'll see you at 8. And she's like, no. And he's continuing to press, and she's keeping saying no. And that's one of those things that viewing through a modern lens is difficult, because I don't know how the 1940s audience what they would have thought about it.
You know, I think at that time, aside from the creepy peeping Tom bit, like I think that probably didn't play very well, or was, I don't know, I don't want to say didn't play very well, but I'm pretty sure everybody found that as not kosher. Like you don't stare in a woman's window. But
the window part, yeah, definitely they would have been like, oh no, that's not okay, I'm sure.
But the persistence part, I think that, I mean, like even up through the 80s and 90s and 2000s, that's still a trope that's persists in that's supposed to be what a guy does. A girl's supposed to act
very true.
This, and the guy's supposed to keep pushing, and his persistence is supposed to get rewarded by her finally capitulating. And it's supposed to be a good thing, not she was so tired and just wanted to get him to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like if you think about all the rom-coms that like we grew up on, that's very persistent in it. Yeah. Say anything where he just keeps going after she says I'm done, you know?
Yeah, and she even is like, fine, you can walk with us. My friend and I, Jenny and I, are going to the fortune tellers, you know, and so they go to see, you know, to see Bella, and that's when later.
It wasn't even like, fine, you can walk with. So she's waiting outside alone at first, and he comes up. It's almost like she's playing a trick on him. Like she intends to capitulate, but she's going to make it clear that it's not going to be a date because she has the friend. You know? Which you could see he found off putting for sure. But yeah. But yes, I'm sorry, continue. They go to see Bella.
Yeah. Oh, and then you have the lovely fortune telling scene where, of course, Jenny is, when will I get married?
That's what all us Jennies really want to know.
Is it really?
Perpetual wish of Jenny's.
Every night I just sit there and I weep and feel about no longer being married.
What is it?
I did not celebrate my divorcery every year. Like, yes, I'm free. No, sorry.
Stop. I need to breathe.
Much ado about nothing. I sit and cry hey ho for a husband.
Whereas Betsy just goes to me, Rebecca, every time. Well, at least I'm married.
Thanks,
no, we love Seth. Seth is an awesome dude.
Yes.
I was gonna say certainly
fantastic.
I love my husband, but certainly I'm not like, ha ha, I got one and you don't. That's not how this works.
She does. It's so mean. I'm just
seriously.
I am very.
All right, sorry. We totally
Anyway, yeah.
That was Bela the fortune teller with Jenny,
Bela the fortune teller.
Who, Bela, of course, ends up being a werewolf. And so he's looking at Jenny's palm. And in the earlier uncomfortable scene where Lawrence is trying to get Gwen to go out with him in the store with the creepy peeping Tom bit, she tells him the werewolf legend about, you know, werewolves they see the sign of the pentagram on their victims' hands, and you know, the star appears on them to identify themselves as a werewolf and all this stuff. And so when this happens with Bela, like, first of all, you see him react negatively to the wolfbane that Jenny happened to pick while she was walking with Gwen and Larry to the fortune teller's camp. And of course, she quotes the poem, because the poem gets quoted like every other scene. And then when she's in there with the fortune teller, you know, she puts down the wolf's bane. Bela's like, no. And then he gets like a headache and weird. And then he looks at her palm and he freaks out because he sees the pentagram on her palm. And he knows this means he's going to turn into a wolf and kill her. So, which is exactly what happens. And, you know, as this is happening, you've got Gwen and Larry that are getting a little close and comfortable. Like,
they're canoodling.
I don't know. You guys' impression, Gwen seemed sort of into it, sort of not. Like I think she was enjoying the flirtation, but was uncomfortable because clearly she had a fiance, but here's a new guy. I don't know.
By this point, she seems pretty flirty, but not like, I don't know, not like sexy time flirty, but certainly like, I'm having a
friendly,
good time.
Flirty.
I was gonna say, I'm having a good time flirty. She walked away with him. But she could have been like, nah.
Yeah.
Tell him she had a fiance.
Yeah.
But she did walk away with him too.
Right. Like, I have a fiance. Let's go this way, away from everyone else. Like, it's a little sketch, Gwen, but fine. Fine.
Yeah. And then of course, he comes to the rescue, at least to try to help Jenny.
Yeah, he hears her scream and runs off to go help her. Yeah.
He bought the walking stick in the first scene, didn't he?
Yeah,
Walking
when
stick with
he
the wolf on
goes
it?
to meet Glenn, that's when he gets the walking stick. He starts with that whole weird story about, oh, but you have those gold earrings with the dangles that he was spying on her about.
Yeah.
And then she's
Yeah.
like, do you want my dad? And he's like, no, I'll get a cane. And that's how he ends up with the iconic cane.
I was gonna say, because I'm pretty sure that he beats the guy with the cane for a minute. The cane becomes.
Oh yeah.
Well, he beats the wolf with the cane.
Yeah, the wolf.
And
Bella.
it's clear, so the wolf that Bela turns into is actually a wolf. He doesn't turn into this half wolf, half man creature. He's fully a wolf. And the scene, I love this bit because this is like, I just rewatched this today. The scene where you see him struggling with the dog is actually Lon Chaney Jr.'s German Shepherd he's playing with. And you can kind of tell that he's playing with the dog.
Yeah, you can tell.
Wagging so
wagging?
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the technology yet.
Yeah, the dog's name was Moose. And he had been a stray that was running around the universe a lot. And Lon Chaney had a big soft spot for animals. And he was like, I'm gonna rescue this dog. And so yeah, they went ahead and they used the dog in the film. He was the wolf. They used him in a few publicity stills as well. There's a great picture of Lon Chaney, in his Wolfman get up with the dog, going like that, growling at the dog.
But it's really the shortest little battle you'll ever see, because I think there was no way to make that dog not look happy, because he was just like, and then they're behind a tree, and then I think what they show him punching is just like a stuffed head, because it doesn't look like a dog.
Agree, yeah.
So yeah, you just get a few seconds of Moose and his happy teeth.
Yeah, there was a post once that just made me like the happiest thing in the world on the internet that said that like almost every dog you see in a movie that's mean, the tail has been CGI'd, because they're always really happy because they're doing a good job acting. So they can get them to make the mean face, like can get them to do that, but they can't get the tail to stop wagging because they're doing a really good job.
I read the same thing. Yeah.
And I'm like, my heart, I can't.
Agree.
So on the ironic twist of tail on that, so my dog Ham, who is a very friendly, extremely lethargic, basically ball of cuddle. I don't know how to explain him. He's just not right. But at any rate, what he's about, he's also a straight out killer. Like if you're a cat or a bird or a squirrel or anything small, and the rabbit, he wants to eat it and he doesn't play. So like the dog doesn't bark or anything. He just goes for the kill. But when he goes for the kill, his tail is wagging like mad. I don't know what that's about. Maybe he's just so happy he's about to eat a small furry creature. So I also think about that when I see tail.
You know what? He's doing a great job of protecting you from the tiny thing.
No, he doesn't give a shit if he's protecting me. No, he wants to eat. That's what Ham the dog is about. He's about eating and sleeping and then getting pets. Protecting is not.
He means
not as. Yeah, I mean, my dogs are decorative. I'm sorry. And they kill rodents. That's about it.
I mean,
Reese could do a good Wolfman. She could be a decent stand-in for Wolf, even though she's kind of small. You should see her growl and jump at the window when the mailman comes. It's pretty fierce.
Sometimes my Chihuahua gets down real low and lopes around our house, and she looks like a mini wolf.
Him does somewhat look like a wolf dog. I don't really think he looks like a wolf because it's my dog, but other people, like the neighborhood kids and stuff, will walk by and ask me if he's a wolf. I think they haven't been exposed to too many wolves, but he's kind of rangy looking. He's actually a bigger dog.
I was gonna say it's the husky.
I did that.
It's husky stuff because he's got the
yeah, clearly part husky. Anyway, sorry, I didn't need to digress.
I
could talk about dogs forever.
Wolf and a dog.
It's us. We're gonna digress if a dog comes on the screen. I mean,
so we have Moose, who's happy to be playing with Lon Chaney Jr. in the movie, and during that scene, of course, Lon Chaney Jr. with Lawrence Talbot gets bit, and he kills the werewolf that bit him. And it's pointed out eventually in the movie that silver is very important in killing, and that's where you start getting your silver bullet myth. Silver bullet, silver tipped cane, silver knife, doesn't matter, got to be silver. Silver spork, just as long as you
Silver spork. I want a silver spork.
Now we're all gonna look for a silver spork.
I can find those.
But there's
But yeah, so it's interesting because then you have, like, of course, Mileva, I believe is Maria Opuskaya's character's name.
Yes.
Comes by, sees that her son's dead, and she helps Gwen and Lawrence get back to the Talbot Castle. And when they're approaching the door, like, you hear John Talbot, and again, I think I forgot the name of the character, but it was like the guard.
There's the policeman, and then there's like the gameskeeper, and I always get them
Gameskeeper
confused.
is the fiance of Gwen, and then the
Correct.
police captain was actually an old friend of Larry Talbot's. But yeah, they're talking, and I think they were talking about how Larry had been away, but now it's perfect that he'd spent all those years in the United States because it would bring more skills to him being able to run the estate once John Talbot is dead. Because one of the pivotal things that they kind of mentioned, but don't, I mean, it's like kind of put in there, but then it's obscured over, is the fact that Larry's older brother died in a hunting accident. And that is what triggered Larry to come home. And there's a really touching beginning scene when he gets in there where, John Talbot, his father, Claude Rains, says that, he says that, hey, there's bad traditions where the younger son's overlooked and we don't, and the father doesn't show enough affection, and let's end this now. And, there's a handshake, and, it's supposed to be better days where he's, going to be more compassionate with his son. And of course, now that Larry's older brother's dead, he's now the sole heir. So he's never going to be able to live. So you can just see that Sir John Talbot is excited that his younger son is home. Mm-hmm. He's really, hopeful for the changes he can make after his experience abroad. And
it's obviously cares for his son.
Yeah. And it's kind of makes the whole thing a little heartbreaking how it ends up.
It does. It does.
So they bring him home, and they just see that he's limping in, and it's just Gwen and the butler at this point then, because Mileva she's taken off.
She's like,
gone. I'm not going to come into the estate. And it's like the worst timing ever. They were talking about how hopeful they were for everything, and now there's
and that from this point everything is going to fall apart. So you as the audience person knows it.
Right.
Now here's what's really interesting though. I was reading that originally the script was written with, you don't ever actually see the wolf, the original writing of the script. There's no wolf beast, there's no wolf man beast, and you're supposed to wonder this whole time, or you see a wolf but you never see a werewolf, like this long change behind me here. And the idea was you weren't supposed to know if Lawrence Talbot was losing his mind, if it was a psychological issue, or if he really physically was turning into a creature and things.
That really solidifies something I was thinking about, because from the point of fact when they're like, you kill, they were concerned that he killed Bela because they found Bela's body, they found his walking stick, and now Lawrence Talbot, he knows he kills a wolf. He saw the wolf, it bit him, he knows this. But everybody else keeps telling him, were you confused? Were you mistaken? So he's getting gaslit from the point, really, when he comes home after the attack, from that forward. Mm-hmm. And what you just said really amplifies that. Because even then I'm like, is he really being gaslit a bunch? This feels wrong. And fact, I think having that extra information, I'm like, that would have made this into an entirely different movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can see maybe why they didn't take that approach, because they wanted to have the monster. They wanted to have the monster on screen. But
that's also why
they thought it'd be more marketable with an actual creature instead of a psychological,
Yeah, and I think they're right, but I think, wow, now I really wish I could see that psychological movie. I really do.
Well, they tried to leave it in a little bit, which is why you see Bella turn into a wolf, but you never see Talbot turn into a wolf. He becomes
True.
a werewolf. Because it still could all be in his mind. Maybe he fought a wolf and now he's going crazy and he thinks
That's true.
that.
That's true.
So they tried to tread the line there. It's a little more specific, but they did purposefully show him in the makeup and not Bella at all. For that reason, to keep a little bit of that, just a little bit. He never turns into a full wolf. He's always a werewolf.
Yeah, he's always Wolfman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is a word they never say.
Yak hair and spirit gum for the most part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yak hair and spirit gum. Doesn't that sound like it smelled
Just
horrible?
delightful.
There is no wonder he was drinking so much on set if he was being put into that makeup, because he had claimed it was the only way he could stand it.
Yeah, I read that it was 6 hours to get on and like 3 hours to take off. So
Yeah.
not pleasant.
I don't know if you've ever used spirit gum, but even the spirit gum remover doesn't remove it well.
I
Kinda just
haven't.
scratch it off your head, really, or wherever
Wherever you put it.
Yeah. The only stuff I've used a bunch, like I used liquid latex when I was doing some vampire costuming. And I know just peeling that off my face was an adventure. So I can imagine it had to be hell to get out of makeup at the end of the day. And I think too, I may be wrong about this caveat, is that I don't think he got along with Jack Pierce, who was the makeup guy.
I haven't read, but entirely possible because it sounds like Lon Chaney Jr. didn't get along with a lot of people.
I was
going to say, it sounds like he was a bit of a pistol. So
from the director's side of point, though, they were usually pleased because he had a reputation, like he knew his lines. When the director said go, he was on.
Yeah, he was supposed to be an excellent actor and excellent to work with from the perspective of when the cameras were rolling and they said action, he was on it.
Yeah.
However,
as any of us who have been involved in any sort of theater putting on aspect, there's so much behind the scenes work, and that can really make your co-stars hate you.
Not wrong.
I'm sure Betsy knows plenty about that, being involved in the Ren Fair
and in theater. Yeah. Stories, so many stories.
But I mean, even despite that, though, he does an excellent job. He plays the tortured character so well.
Very well.
So well. It's a master at it. And unfortunately, I think he got typecast as that.
Absolutely true that anytime you saw the Wolfman during the Universal Monsters period, it was Lon Chaney.
Yeah.
He always played, which is interesting because Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, those would be traded off. Like anytime you saw Dracula, it wasn't necessarily Bela. Anytime you saw the Mummy, it wasn't necessarily Boris Karloff. Anytime you saw Frankenstein, it wasn't necessarily Boris Karloff either.
Correct.
Bela Lugosi at one point played Frankenstein. So I mean,
they traded.
Boris Karloff at one point played Dracula. Like it all traded around with them.
I think
but the Wolfman was Lon Chaney Jr.
Yeah, and he was proud of that. You know, he was proud of that saying that and it was his mark. I mean, he was never originally supposed to go into acting. You know, his father pushed him into being a plumber, and then the Depression hit and his business failed, and he's like, I guess I can go into acting.
Yeah. Well, and I think his dad was dead by that time too, wasn't he?
I think, because his dad died. Because we discussed in our Phantom episode, the Lon Chaney,
very young. Yeah, he was
senior died. He was 46, and I mean, I lost my dad when my dad was 59. I can't even imagine.
Well, Lon Chaney Jr. himself was not old when he died either. He was in his 60s, his early 60s, I believe. He died in the 70s.
I want to say he went out a similar way as his dad.
I don't know if it was cancer. It might have been complications from drinking. But you all Google it. You can figure it out.
Yeah,
everybody's still kind of young. He made it further than his dad.
Go Google it. Yeah. That's and so he had a little bit of trouble with Hollywood, as anybody who gets typecast does. But he did manage to segue onto the small screen a bit. as well. There was something called the Golden Junkyard, something to that aspect. He was an illiterate Italian immigrant, who came over and was trying to make a better life for his sons, who, of course, much like any immigrants, Giuseppe becomes Henry and and whatnot. So it was an interesting. I'm gonna have to actually look that one up.
Yeah, it looks like I just got a quick Google for TV. He was in a lot of westerns apparently in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
There's something called 13 Demon Street. I'm not sure what that was, and something called Cosmopolitan Theater. Something called East German, but that was the 1930s.
13 Demon Street was apparently a horror anthology series, so a precursor to like Twilight Zone or not Twilight Zone, like Alfred Hitchcock and those.
Okay, so now we have something else to research.
Right? I was like, now we're gonna have to look at that. Also, he died of heart disease.
Okay. All right.
I'm
completely out of my mind.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
And he was 67. So
that's still young.
I was gonna say young enough that it's like,
but not tragically young like his father. Just
not like his father. Yeah, like his father was 40. That's insane.
I'm now older, 6 years older than his father was. Guys,
yeah,
doesn't feel that old to me. In case you're wondering,
I'm sure. Yeah, it's but still good actor.
Yeah,
certainly. I think I think he wasn't the top actor in the Universal creature features, but I think he wasn't far behind.
Yeah, he was definitely in the top 5, at least in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he just was in a lot of creature features. Like that's most of his movie repertoire. There's some westerns. There is Of Mice and Men. That was, I think, 1939. I looked it up real quick. I just don't have it
all right.
So yeah, so he has some versatility in the movies, a little more versatility in the TV, but mostly was in the horror genre in the movies. Not always as the Wolfman, but if you see the Wolfman in the movies during that period, it was launching.
Yeah. I really did enjoy his tragic performance in the Wolfman. Yeah,
he was quite good.
Yeah, because and when
it showed me crazy about the villagers and the whole thing. They knew that something bit out Jenny's throat. Like it wasn't like they thought a human had done it. But
it was very clearly they were like, yeah.
And then when other things had their throats ripped up, they were looking for a wolf. So I think what they were trying to say is that like poor Larry Talbot was trying to save Jenny from the wolf, and that Bela came up and he just killed Bela because he was confused while fighting off the wolf.
Like,
so I think his father the whole time was trying to protect him from going up for murder.
Right.
Yes, his father was definitely protecting him, and I really liked that scene where he's like, "Look, you're a Talbot. X generations of us have been here. This is Talbot Castle. Do you really think they're going to come in here and take you out?"
Yeah.
And
the other sad reality was, you're looking like at Bella, the fortune teller, and the treatment of that type of person throughout the ages. Honestly, no one was going to go after him for killing him anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, in all reality.
I mean, it hurts, but it's true.
I don't know what parallels we could think about today.
Right.
Several. Yeah. Different show. But yes.
That is a different show.
But yeah, it's definitely there. And it's interesting because they make Mileva very sympathetic, the character of Bela's mother, because, she knew her son was a wolfman. I wouldn't say she encouraged him. And like, the funny thing is when you're watching it, you forget that the full moon is not part of this mythos yet.
Right.
For this particular scene. So it seems like what triggers the wolf transformation is the seeing of the victim. So it's like Bela had no way of knowing he was going to transform until he saw that on Jenny's palm.
Until Jenny
he tried to get her to get the hell away from him. But Mileva didn't know what was going on until after the fact. But it makes you wonder, like, had she been monitoring the situation better? Like, should she have maybe processed?
Yeah. Has she tried to prevent it in the past? Yeah.
Has she succeeded in preventing it in the past? Like,
yeah. But she seemed grateful that he was now out of his misery. Like she
Right.
had no anger or angst towards Larry Talbot whatsoever. She was actually had gratitude and was trying to help him out. And interestingly enough, she was also trying to help him out after he got bit. You know, she
Right.
didn't just raise her hands and go. But also what was interesting is clearly I would assume that the rest of the fortune teller encampment knew about Bela. And so I assume they had worked some way to deal with it, because I can't imagine that Mileva and Bela had kept it hidden from them the whole time. But when Mileva knows that Larry has been bitten and it healed right away, so she knows that Larry's a werewolf. She knows it.
Yeah.
She spreads the word around the camp, and the fortune teller and the encampment, they pack up and get the hell out of Dodge. They're gone.
They pack up their shit and they're out of there like a wildfire. They're like, nope. Which does, I agree, that sort of makes me question it.
Didn't they know? Were they okay with Bela being werewolf?
You know, had she been able to control it somehow, or did they chain him up when he transformed? You know, that kind of thing.
Like, did you normally, as soon as you see something, you know, make them aware so they can, like that part fascinates me. It's not intrinsic to the movie whatsoever, but I'm one of those people that sees it and goes, but what about?
Right.
I know. I want to know.
Yeah.
Why?
Mileva keeps showing up though, you know, so as soon as he transforms, she's like, she gets him out of a wolf trap at one point, you know, she just, she tries to get Gwen to not be a dumbass.
She tries so hard, and nobody listens to her.
No. She even tries to get Sir John Talbot to realize that he needs to go be with his son. There's a nice little scene there where, like, John Talbot decides that what's going on with Larry is that this fortune teller woman has planted seeds in his head to make him think that he's a werewolf and that he was fighting a werewolf. And this is all kind of her fault. And, you know, he finally runs into her, and to be fair, the way he confronts her is not as bad as it really could have been. You know, like in reality, it's very much.
In reality, it would have been really bad.
Yeah, and in this, it was just slightly aggressive wording. You know what I mean? Like, that's really all you got. You are the woman who's been filling his head full of this nonsense, and she fights back so eloquently. You know what I mean? The whole scene, she's just, oh yes, filling his head with nonsense. Where's your son? Why are you running back to him now? You know, like, you're not worried, are you? You know better than this nonsense. It's just, and God, she's such an amazing actress. And an interesting story in the fact that she started off as a stage actress in Russia, and then I think they probably found her, typecast her as you know, this type of character in a movie, and then she went to Hollywood when she was much older. So this is one of the rare cases where you have a female actress that became a Hollywood legend in a sense when she was middle-aged, you know, like that's almost unheard of. Like
that I
mean, especially like, yeah, it's just awesome. And I think that's because she was just so amazing. She was in a whole bunch of different types of movies. Now, as to what role she played in those movies, I have a feeling it was probably character type along the lines of Fortune Teller Woman, even in non-horror movie genres. But, you know, very, very, very just the way she just carried herself, the role, amazing. I'm a huge fan of her. So,
oh no.
Yeah, the end result, after everything is said and done, and like poor Larry thinks he's nuts, so they try tying him to a chair, you know, all this stuff. But it turns out he is a werewolf, and he ends up being killed by his own father, who, you know, doesn't know it's him. He just sees a Wolfman attacking Jenny, attacking Gwen. And this is what bothered me though about this scene. He consistently, well, both the werewolves consistently were killing by biting throats and mauling. And then when he goes after Gwen, he strangles.
Who knows? Who knows?
Weird. It's a strange thing to get caught up on, but I was caught up on that. I'm like, why is not, did they not want the shot of him trying to, I don't understand.
I don't know.
It may be part of that. They were trying to tread that line over whether or not he was actually a werewolf or if he was like a person who's gone crazy. So showing him strangling her or even like physically ripping out her throat with his hand is different than having him go in with his teeth. Do you know what I mean? So it's like,
transform into a wolf creature at this point, though. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you put on makeup and is pretending to be a werewolf man. The way the movie's shot, it's making it look like he's
Transforming in some
supernaturally
way.
being transformed.
Right.
So, but I mean, it could just because they didn't want Gwen dead, and if he went and bit her throat, there was patient.
Yeah, she would be very, very dead.
So maybe they were trying to show he was resisting because he had some humanity left. Who knows?
Maybe that's kind of the idea.
knows,
Like he's like, no, I have some affection for this person. Don't kill her, or
So
whatever.
strangle her.
Fighting his better nature.
Some small bit of his humanity fighting against the wolf urges.
Yeah.
Potentially is why he hadn't moved to do that
Yet.
Hadn't moved for the bite yet.
Yeah, that's my justification. It's the best I could come up with as well. Like,
I think
that makes the most sense.
And afterwards, you finally see like the facial makeup transformation.
Yes.
With him.
Prior to that, you only saw his feet, and then he was the wolf.
Yeah, you saw his feet change before, and you're like, really, feet? At the ending scene, you see him do the slow fade back to humanity, and and his father realizes, oh shit, it's all true, and I just killed my son.
Yeah.
And then the movie just
kind of
ends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Maleva over his body, saying the same words that she said over her son's body, which I don't remember verbatim, but actually very touching.
Something, though the road you walked was thorny,
was not chosen by you, and
something
run down their face to the predestined end. So you're at peace at last, basically.
May you find peace. I hope you're at peace. Yeah, it was, because I think she understood the nature that they were the victim of forces that they could not control.
Right. I mean,
ultimately,
wolfmen or full out wolf dogs. And what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if either of you had the time. The 2010 Wolfman, not a good movie in my opinion. Had a stellar cast.
I don't
know what the fuck went wrong with that cast because it was a stellar cast. Sorry,
was that the one with Benicio del Toro?
Yeah, Benicio del Toro.
Benicio del Toro.
Benicio, okay.
And Anthony Hopkins and God, what was his name? Played the detective in it. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, with
actor. He actually didn't do bad. And sorry.
With even just those two, Anthony Hopkins and Benicio, they should have done better. You would have thought. But then again, actors can only work with the script that they're given. So maybe the screenwriting was not so good.
Hugo Weaving was in it. Another excellent.
Oh, yeah.
One of the few roles in it that it wasn't that bad. But I don't know what happened between Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins, but like Anthony Hopkins kind of just phoned it in. And then Benicio del Toro, I don't know if he was like nervous about working with Anthony Hopkins or what, or just not feeling the role, but it was like if William Shatner did the Wolfman. It was just
that's unfortunate.
All right. So
I didn't have a chance to watch the 2010 one.
I'm about to give you a fact that is disturbing. So one of Benicio del Toro's first ever roles was playing the dog face boy in Big Top Pee-wee. Pee Wee Herman.
And he did excellent in that role.
I was just saying he was great in that one.
He was amazing in the movie The Hunted. I mean, I love Benicio del Toro as an actor.
Yes,
he just did really well in this version.
I can't imagine.
I don't really think it was necessarily the script, because what they had done that I thought was really interesting is they really pulled from this original source piece here. And you still had the Talbots, you still had the prodigal son, you still had the older brother getting killed in what was put as a hunting accident. Where they had changed it up a little, which should have been interesting, was that John Talbot, the father, actually was the Wolfman to start with. That he got bitten in India. There's this whole backstory they put in there. And there's a bit where like Benicio del Toro, as Larry Talbot, sees his father kill his mother when he's a kid. He doesn't see his father as a Wolfman at the time. He just sees like this weird, like and his dad sends him to a sanitarium. Basically, he gets that tortured out of him. You know what I mean? Like, you're really insane. Let me shock therapy, drown you, therapy. Okay, that didn't happen. Your mom actually just killed herself, and you just saw her corpse there, and that's how your child brain worked with it, which is why he ran off to America. And he comes back because his brother dies. But his brother, the hunting accident, was his father. It slowly gets revealed in the movie. And then his father ends up biting him. So now you have two werewolves, and they battle it out. And it's still very tragic, and it should have been interesting and good. It just
wasn't.
One thing that I always wondered about with the 1941 version was so everybody in this village knows this werewolf legend heavily. They all recite the poem constantly. So this is obviously well-known lore in this village. Why? You know,
they don't. Yeah,
why
they
is
never
it so strong?
Right.
And you have the fortune tellers. Oh, the fortune tellers come every year. I think that is fact that they come frequently. And
So
his
was
brother
Bela
killed
Wolfman's son,
and his,
or was
and
that
his
a real
brother was killed in a hunting accident.
accident?
Was the brother killed by a werewolf? It's one of those questions that I'm like, there's so many coincidences that it could have been a thing.
I was gonna say, or was his brother even a werewolf and then got shot, in wolf form, and this is what has happened. Who knows? There's so many things that could, because I had that thought too. I'm like, how many of those Romani are werewolves? Like, we know one, but it's very possible that many of them were also werewolves, and they're running away before they get blamed for any of this.
That's a good question.
Yeah. So, yeah, they left a lot of things open-ended so that you could kind of, it leaves it really open to playing with the lore. Yeah, to playing with the lore, which is really nice. And I thought they did a really good job of creating a world, but not over-explaining the world.
I think it helped that it was a reasonable runtime, because it clocked in at around 70 minutes. And so you're not, and when you're making something that's 2 hours, 2.5, 3 hours long, you got to find material to fill. This was very tight. They kept the story moving. They're like, let's not delve into too much extraneous stuff. There's not a lot of extemporaneous dialogue. No.
Nobody asks nor volunteers what happened to the mother of these people. There apparently should have been one, but Talbot doesn't have one, a wife, and they never talk about her at all.
Nothing about when mom died, nothing like that.
No, nothing at all. She's just gone. She disappeared.
Yeah, which might be why when the 2010 movie came around, they were filling in those gaps, because it did fill in a lot of that information. Like, mother was killed by the father. The hunting accident was actually the father killing his oldest son, because he got unchained. So I think, like I said, if it had, I don't know what the fuck happened in that movie. I really don't. It should have been good.
I was just
when you don't watch it, because I know at some point your curiosity is going to get the best of it. Tell me I'm crazy, but it just wasn't good.
I just looked it up, and the director is Joe Johnston. So he has a mixed bag of tricks in his back pocket. He directed things like the 90s Jumanji and Indiana Jones and Captain America, the first one. But he also directed Rocketeer.
Hey, I like the Rocketeer.
I love the Rocketeer, but it suffers from some really, really big plot holes. The direction's a little wonky.
Yeah,
like
the Rocketeer was a $1.50 movie theater movie.
Yeah,
it's
keeping in mind that I enjoy watching the Rocketeer. I'm also aware that it has big plot holes. It has a lot of why did they do that? What things happen that you're like, oh, because the director told you to go there. Cool. That's all I need to know. The director told you to walk over there. Awesome.
I wish I could tell you why I didn't like it. I found the Wolfman 2010 almost painful to watch at some points. Not because of the content, it just was not so good. There were some parts where it was decent, but it was to point out the Rocketeer. So the Rocketeer had a lot of problems, but you enjoyed watching it. All the other movies you mentioned, Jumanji from the 90s, Captain America, they were all fun to watch.
Those are fine.
Yeah.
But the Wolfman, like I said, audience, watch it yourself. Feel free to give us feedback. We have a email. We'll put it up for you. You can email us. You can contact us on our Facebook page. Call me out and say I'm nuts. It's an awesome movie if you want. But
Let us know. Oh.
I did not think it was good.
Jurassic Park 3. He also directed Jurassic Park 3.
Okay.
I don't know that I watched that one. Or if I did, it didn't leave enough of an impression.
I don't think I saw that one. Yeah.
But
don't watch that one.
The Wolfman, however, the 1941. I don't know how I forgot that. So interestingly, I think it was released 4 days after the attack on Pearl Harbor. And Universal was very, very, very afraid that it would completely flop because nobody would want to watch a horror movie after an actual horrifying
horror event. Yeah.
But the whole thing is, as many of us horror fans feel, the horror movie genre is a catharsis because it's such unrealistic horror. Like you don't really expect to run into a werewolf or a vampire, or so to us it's just this release.
It's a distraction. It's a really good distraction
from the real horrors.
From
like the
real
horror movies I don't like watching are ones that remind me of growing up in Youngstown. Like I don't want to see torture. I don't want to see police corruption. I don't want to see mafia killings. I don't want to see women slaughtered all the time. Why? I grew up with that. It's not a catharsis. It's a reminder.
Right? No, I totally agree. Like, and that's, I'm not one of those people to sit down and watch a really, really, really realistic war movie. I mean, I've done it and I'll probably do it again, but it's not something that I'm going to sit down and enjoy for fun. I will watch it if someone else is making me watch it, but otherwise, it's just not my cup of tea because it's realistic and I know it actually happens. And I don't need to know that. I would rather be distracted. Thank you. Distract me. Thank you, horror.
Give me the monster that is unreal.
Exactly. Give me the monster under my bed, not the monster that actually exists. Mm-hmm. Because the real monster is us.
Final thoughts.
Final thoughts? Yeah, I really enjoy the film. I think despite everything, every stumbling block that Chaney has, he does a good job. The pacing is good. It keeps moving. You're not bogged down at any point. I mean, it definitely belongs in the fun creature feature genre.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is a great movie. I mean, it just is. Arguably, it's a great film. It's a great creature movie. And you can absolutely see how this film directly leads to things like An American Werewolf in London, even movies like Ginger Snaps, which is a personal favorite of mine from the 90s. You can see where that lore starts building and building upon itself to become this bigger thing. And this is where it comes from. This is the roots. So it's such a cool film to watch. It sets up so many things. And it's just a nice, fun romp. I mean, it's not the heaviest horror movie in the world, but it's a really good, solid romp of a horror movie.
Well, as not that this is a horror film, but one friend of mine had a saying that, about movies. Well, it's not Dr. Zhivago, but it doesn't need to be.
Exactly. It's for what it is. It's fun. It's really good. And knowing more about the backstory of it a little bit, it explains a lot.
It does. I agree.
Yeah, very similar. I think it's fun. It's tragic though. I mean, like you can't have too much because it really, the underlying thing is very sad. I like
it is
how they touched on how women were viewed though. Like it's interestingly how subtle you have it when you have the Jenny's mom come in and totally go after Gwen because what was she doing?
Yes, that scene.
I thought that little subtle commentary and there was really, really well done. I was impressed by that. And I think there's a lot of subtle commentary in there, especially when you know the history, like, the Nazis and what horrors men are capable of, just really good stuff. I'm a fan, honestly, of all the Universal monster movies.
Oh God, yes.
Sure.
I like them all.
I was going to say.
And it's funny, anytime I rewatch one, I rewatch it, that's my favorite, until I rewatch the other one, I'm like, oh, then that's my favorite. So honestly, I think The Mummy is really my true favorite, but for different reasons. But, there's other things that make these ones more my favorite, so which sounds stupid. Well, how could 3 movies be your favorite or 4 movies? It can
Because they
happen.
are.
I
Oh,
They
also
just
have
are.
2 best friends. Just work with me.
I have a lot of favorite movies and in all kinds of genres all across the world.
Yeah. So I don't know if you haven't ever watched it or if it's been a while since you watched it, watch it. It's really
Absolutely.
great. And then, yeah, pretty much any other werewolf movie you have seen in any time past this one, it's all drawing from this as its source material.
Mhm.
This is where it
Absolutely.
came from, with the exception, not to say the exception, some of them that go more cultural, like when you're looking at indigenous peoples transforming creatures,
Yeah.
you still will see, like, nobody wants to let go completely of this. You know what I mean? So even they'll integrate that into some of the ones that they're trying to base off indigenous,
Yeah.
which may be a problem appropriation. That's another conversation that I don't want to
we won't
neglect,
get
but I'm
Yeah.
white, so I can't really speak to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm not the person to talk about it, but yeah,
Mhm.
that's
It's a conversation that obviously should
Yep.
happen, and things that you should read and be aware of. But yeah, I'm not the
Slight-
spokesperson.
to agree, slightly outside the scope of our podcast.
Yes.
absolutely.
So, but I can't pretend it's not there, so I had to mention it. So,
Yeah.
but at any rate,
So go, I would say go back, watch your favorite werewolf movies, watch this one, and then see how much of the 1941 version you see in your
Yeah.
favorites.
Oh, I forgot The Howling. That's a good
Oh,
one.
yeah.
The Howling.
Just
Can't
just
remember.
saying.
You deal with werewolves. Good thing to know.
Yep.
That might not come out till Howling 2 or 3. I don't remember now.
I'm thinking of The Howling 1. It's good.
Yeah, that was the one I was thinking of.
And the creepiest transformation. Ugh.
I
still have to say
this-
my favorite transformation is still American Werewolf in London, because it was just all like makeup and effects and
I was thinking my favorite werewolf transformation is from Hemlock Grove.
Ooh.
The Netflix series.
Yeah, that one
The
was.
I think it's the
season-
most sophisticated one by far, with all the technology out there now. But like I said, I still like American Werewolves in London because they didn't have all the technology, and it still was just an amazing transformation. So that's kind of why it remains my favorite. Not because it was the best one ever, just because what they did to make that happen.
Because the FX guy did a good job with what he had. Yeah.
Yeah.
With the makeup and everything.
I love practical
Yeah.
effects though. But yeah, go watch more vampire or more werewolf movies. They're good. They're really good. What is that one?
They bring about the theme really that the monsters are us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We all have a monster within.
I was gonna say everyone has a monster within.
Yes. Some it's just more visible than others.
Right? Oh yeah.
I
I want to watch more werewolf movies.
All right. Well, with that, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is Girls Go to Schools. I'm Jenny.
I'm Rebecca.
Betsy.
And we'll see you again sometime.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Girls Go Schools podcast. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Girls Go Schools Podcast, on Twitter at Girls Ghost Pod. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Girls Go Schools Podcast, and find our podcast on your favorite podcatcher.